I arrived at Mansfield just under 4 years ago, after being in Melbourne for quite some time, and I was principal at Glen Waverley Primary and then Albany Rise Primary, and had a couple of stints as acting prim before that. And I didn't really think I'd find myself back in Mansfield, but that was the way life went for me at that stage. And I guess when I arrived back, I got a bit of a shock, just in terms of behaviours, and I'll comment on those in a few minutes. But we had a health program running within the school, but it wasn't what you would call from P to 6. There's a number of people here before us today who have worked in our school and are still working in our school. And I think Jenny at the time, Jenny Lovick, was running perhaps a day a term, or maybe even once a year visit Jenny, providing some basic health program to our students. It was supported by Life Ed and a few other things, so not really comprehensive. A little bit about Mansfield so that you get a bit of an understanding of just what our school is like. I'm sure many of you have been through Mansfield at some stage or another on your way to Buller, or just visiting Mansfield. So Mansfield's about 3,500 residents living in town. It's about 1,500 people living out of town in places like Goss Bay, Tolmy, Buller Jammo, Bonnie Doon and so on. There's a lot of little hamlets around Mansfield. At Mansfield Primary there are 10 buses arrive and depart every day. So there's about 140, 50 of our kids travel by bus every day. So there's a good percentage of our kids, roughly a third or a bit over a third, who are quite isolated, living right up in the back blocks of Jamison and Kevington and those places up towards Woods Point. And they don't really have a lot of contact with other kids. So a very diverse student population. Fred was mentioning before about having an SFO of 0.9, I think, at your school. Ours is 0.45. I think we're pretty disadvantaged, but not as much as Fred is, obviously, and what a wonderful story that is. As a consequence, we sort of have to leverage, if you like, as much as we possibly can through a whole range of agencies to get the best service provision and support in town. Petra, who's over here, comes from Wang or Benalla once a week for psych and student support services, and there are other support groups that visit our school. But within Mansfield we've got the Better Communities and Youth Leadership Network, which has a representative from a whole range of agencies, both within the town and some who travel from outside the town, to be a part of that network. And so we're coordinating the provision of services and support to the schools and other educational institutions in town through that network, and building better support for families and kids. When I arrived at Mansfield, as I said, I got a little bit of a shock. I think I might have had a relatively protected existence in Melbourne. I was, as I said, principal at Mansfield Primary, Glen Waverley Primary School, a very diverse multicultural school despite being in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. And then at Albany Rise, which was certainly a different school, but only 7 k's really from Glen Waverley in the sort of Springvale North, Mulgrave area. I was in a bit of a state of shock to the extent that I had previously worked with Nicole. Nicole was my student welfare coordinator at Albany Rise, and I rang her up and I said, "Oh, are you doing anything?" And she said, "Not really." I said, "Can you come up for a day?" I said, "I need you to just walk around our school and just give me some feedback on what's happening here, because I saw lots of what I thought was unacceptable behaviours and stuff that I certainly wasn't prepared to accept." She walked back into my office, and I'll never forget it, at about 3:30 or 3:35 or something like that at the end of the day, and she's gone, "Oh my Godfather." I mean, just to give you an understanding, in a lot of inappropriate behaviour, amongst our kids. Boys teasing girls, girls teasing boys, stereotyping, sexualised gestures, inappropriate language, inappropriate dress, sexting, cyberbullying, and so on and so on and so on. A lot of aggressive behaviours, very, very poor social skills, and what I call low-level resilience. So if you mix all that together in the general student population, you can see where it can take kids if there's not an educative process starting to underpin the right thing to do in your school. Within the Better Communities network, what we've tried to do is to look at broader issues happening not just within Victoria and Australia, but more locally within our community. And those issues, as you're all well aware, include drug abuse, sexualised behaviours across the board, I guess, but particularly in young people, family violence, alcohol-related issues, and health-related issues. And if you think about that 0.5 SFO that we talked about a minute ago, we're just an average school. I'm not sure if any of you have seen the spectrum of spread of schools on that SFO, but 0.9 Fred School, that's significantly impoverished community. Well, 0.5, we're in the middle, 0.45, we're right in the middle. But when I looked at the behaviours and what was going on amongst our kids, who are lovely kids in a beautiful community, we needed to address that. And so the question became, how do you deal with sexualised behaviour in a normal, healthy way? And so Nicole and I, because we've got a good relationship and we've worked together over some time, we began that conversation and we began to engage our leadership group. As Fred has identified, we began a process, I guess, for getting people on board. It was interesting, the lady over here was asking, well, wouldn't it be nice to go and put this in front of all principals? That is a very good question, and I think it's one that somehow we've got to try and address. To me, it just became obvious, and I guess I was a bit lucky because I've had a lot of experience, obviously over a fairly long period of time, but the stark difference was what hit me in the face. I just wasn't used to inappropriate language and inappropriate behaviours, a lot of put-downs for girls, and just on and on and on it went. So I wanted to do something about it. So as I said, I spoke to my little buddy here, and we had a good number of chats, and so we decided that the Catching On Early program was the way to go. And again, we started a process of engaging our staff, the parents, the broader school community, and Nicole can tell you a little bit about that. So over to you.
I guess the number one thing that we started with was we identified a need, and that was really hard for our staff because some of our staff have been in our school 45 plus years and have only ever taught at Mansfield Primary, and so they couldn't see that the behaviours within our school weren't acceptable because that's what they were used to. And it took someone like Paul and myself to come in and say, no, hang on a minute, they're not, and let's actually have a look at it. And one of the first things we did was collect a whole heap of data and a whole heap of information. We're really lucky that we have the Better Communities network in Mansfield, and we have access to a lot of information that perhaps in other towns you're not so lucky to have. But I encourage you to go and find that information out as best you can. So we worked with lots of people, we had lots of meetings, we got as much information and statistics as we possibly could about our kids in Mansfield. And we presented that to our staff and to our leadership team first. With that, their mouths dropped and they went, oh my God, is this really happening? One of the first things I did when I came was I actually said to our teachers, right, we're going to write down every single behaviour that happens in the yard. Every time a student comes up to you and engages with you with an issue or a problem, you're going to write it down and you're going to tell me what action you took. And within 2 weeks, there's nearly 100 incidences, whereas staff were telling us 2 weeks before that, oh no one comes up to me, I just walk around the yard and everything's fine. When we started to actually write them down and analyse stuff, we realised, my goodness, we've got a problem and it's become really big. And all of a sudden that got our staff on board automatically, because we were saying something's got to change and something's got to be different. Until then, I think a lot of them would admit they had their heads in the sand about what was going on, and they just did it because they just did it, and they're busy, as all teachers are, and they were just trying to exist. And we said, well, we don't want to just exist, we don't want our kids to just exist, we want to change things for them. So identifying the need is the very first thing that we did, and we did that through all those ways there. The next thing we did was get community support and our community on board. And again, we're really lucky. We've got that network that we went to. I actually just went to a meeting and said, hey, this is what we want to do, who's going to help us? And Deb Smith was the first one to put her hand up and say, yes, I will help you any way you want. I'm sure she regretted that in that first year, but that's what we did. So we got our local shire on board, we got Benalla Health and our local library. And our local library was incredible in that first year because we didn't have any money, zero. Paul gave me $0. He said, do this, Nicole, but you've got $0 to do it with. So we had to beg, borrow, and I would say steal, but Paul is a police officer over there, so I'll say beg and borrow for lots of things that we had to do. We also had to get our school council on board, and we did that through a bit of a shock value as well, if you like. We went to them and said, hey, here's what's happening in our school, here's what your children are doing and saying to each other, are you happy with that? And automatically they said no. So we went from there. Obviously our next thing to do was get our staff on board. Once we had our leadership on board, and obviously Paul was on board from the start and we were really lucky, it was then getting all the rest of our teachers. And same thing, that year, it sounds harsh, but we did it through shock value. We gave them as much information that we possibly could, and we even gave them about individual students that perhaps were going through some child protection or child first things, as much as we possibly could without breaching confidentiality. So we really said, information is power. You know, that's what's going to get you over the line and decide, is this something as a school we want to do or we don't want to do, and how do we want to go about it? We gave them lots of information, we gave them professional development. Now, we didn't have 5 days training, we had one night. Deb was there, and Jenny was there, and I was there. And we sat down with our staff, 22 staff then? About 22 staff. And we went through a training, and it was only 3 hours of training that they got that night. What we did do was we had champion leaders or an expert, if you like, to go to. Our 5-6ers had Jenny, and they could ring, email, bug Jenny as much as they possibly could. Anything they wanted after that professional development session. They wanted resources they couldn't find, they wanted anything, go to Jenny. Our Prep 1-2s had Deb, and Deb brought an array of resources to that meeting that we had of the professional development, and they also spent some time with Deb talking about how they might go about it and what some of the activities and things they might want to start with. After then, we had 100% commitment from all our staff. Yes, while we're very, very nervous, our 3-4s, I was the person that they went to, and that was because I am the welfare coordinator, but I also taught grade 3 at the time, so that person became me for that period of time. 100% of staff said, yes, we're very nervous, but yes, we're going to give this a go, and we're going to make it work. In that first year, we said to staff, you won't teach it on your own, you'll team teach. So you'll always have 2 staff members in the room at all times, which meant our aides had to be involved, our specialist teachers, Paul, our assistant principal, myself, everybody. Everybody had a job, everybody had to be a part of it. It did mean that our classes were sometimes a little bigger, but we wanted to make sure that staff had the support for each other. In the second year and this year, We haven't done that. There are some teachers that are team teaching, but there are others that are doing it on their own and quite happy and comfortable to do it on their own. And that's just the way it's worked out in the last 2 years. But that first year we said, you're not going to be alone. There's always going to be someone in the room to help you. We also had a roving teacher in that first room. That was our assistant principal, Hazel. She just went from classroom to classroom. How are you going? Is everything okay? Do you need me to take a student out? What's going on? And she really said by the second session she felt like she had nothing to do because our teachers felt so comfortable once they got into it. The next thing we did was get our parents on board, and like our teachers, there were some parents that were saying to us, hey, we need something. There were other parents that were saying, what are you talking about? My child's not going to have sex or anything to do with that until they're 18 years old, and I'm going to tie them to a tree and make sure that doesn't happen. They really were putting their heads in the sand about where kids were at and what we needed to do. And part of that was about the way they'd been taught about sexuality and development and all that. They said, I remember that big talk. I'm not having that with my child. I remember my mum doing that or my dad doing that. It was so embarrassing. So the first thing we did, we flooded the newsletter. For a whole term before the program started, every fortnight our newsletter came out. Every fortnight there was something in there about catching on early. Every fortnight we had little snippets, things happening within our school, posters up. This is what's going on. Come and talk to us about it. We had a parent information session. Again, we used shock value because our parents really came to that meeting. That first session, our school's quite poorly attended for any parent information sessions, usually 10, 20 parents at most. That first year we had 60 parents and Paul and I nearly died that first night. It was really great to say that they were interested in what's happening. So we used shock value and we said, this is what's going on. You know, are you happy with this? Is this what you want for your child? And by the end of the night, all of them were coming out saying, oh my God, thank you. I was coming here to read you the Right Act, and I was coming in here to say, my child's not doing this, no way. And now I'm actually saying, yes, they need to, and even if they say they don't want to, they're going to do it, which was a really positive thing that came out of it. We gave them lots of information. We actually even said to them, here is the website, here is the Catching On Early program, go to page 100 and whatever. This, if your child's in grade 3, this is the activities they're going to be doing. Go and have a look at them. We gave them lots of tip sheets. This is how you can talk to your kids about it. We recommended this cannot be a surprise for your child when they walk into the classroom, particularly from grade 3 to grade 6. They should already know this, they should already have talked to you about this. Here's how you can go about talking to them. Here is the best ways to go about it. There's the talk soon, talk often resources. Lots of those we borrowed and stole, and we got off the internet and we did lots of things to do that as well, get it done. We also in that first year had a parent morning tea, which was more an informal session, and lots of mums that also had young children came along to that morning tea rather than that evening session. And that was more just a forum, a sit down, a hey, this is what we're doing, what do you think? Ask as many questions as you want. We probably had another 20 parents at that as well. So we didn't do that in the first and second year, and we've actually just had our parent information night last night. This is the third year we're running the program, and we only had 10 parents turn up last night. And we say that's a success. Obviously that means it's just inbuilt into our curriculum and into our program. Parents just know it's happening and yep, that's a part of it and away we go. So we don't consider that anything but a success. Obviously the next thing is to embed it in your current programs and your current curriculum. You can't do it if you don't. We have a positive school-wide behaviour support program that we've done for quite a number of years, and a respectful relationship program, and it just sits in there really nicely. We didn't have to say to the kids, this is a different way of thinking, this is how we want you to act and to think. It was just an addition to that. They already had that happening. When Paul and I first came, probably the teachers will admit that they were overwhelmed with it all, and it was one thing after another, after another, after another. And the first thing Paul and I did was pare it all back and say, okay, we have 3 rules at our school: respect for ourselves, respect for others, respect for our world. Pare everything back, take everything away. That's what we're working on now. And it's only now 3 years down the track where we're starting to say, now we can go the next step with that. and the next step with that. And really we've seen some really great ideas from the kids, bringing that back in. We found that they could talk the talk. Yes, I can respect myself, blah, 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 but they weren't walking the walk. So by paring it all back and just saying, this is it, no more, it really allowed them to start walking the walk. I'm nearly done, hopefully I'm not over time. Oh, good. So resources are always a big thing in schools. As I said, Paul gave me pretty much $0 and said do it. So we begged, borrowed and stole everything we possibly could. In that first year, I didn't have any resources that I could buy. I got them either off the internet, downloaded things. Jenny was great. She gave me this USB stick and said, here you go. Deb was fantastic. She brought along a whole array of books. We went to our library and got them. We went to the high school that were running a sexuality program at the time and stole everything from them for a couple of days or weeks while we did the program. Last year, we did get a little budget, and we did buy some resources, but we're still borrowing. And this year, we're in our third year, we're still borrowing things from particularly the high school, trying to get our resources built up. So I guess if you're a small school and you're starting out, we sort of said, can we do this or can't we? Is it worth it if we can't get all the resources that we want straight away? And the overwhelming result was yes, we need to do this, and we're just going to make it work. And we know that it's going to be a process of 4 to 5 years before we get the program how we want it, the way we want it running, and well resourced. But in the meantime, our kids are getting something, and that's better, a whole lot better than what they were getting in the past. I think that's pretty much all I was going to say about the program, apart from we did have parents who we sent home a letter saying this is what your child will be learning, and this is what we'd like to talk to your child about before they come to the sessions. We did have a small number of parents who really said, no, my child, I don't want them to learn this, particularly in the first year. In the second year, that number dwindled to 2 families in particular, and it wasn't whole sessions or it wasn't the whole program that they wanted to miss. It was just different parts of the program. In grade 4, there's one part of the program where they learn about conception, and they just said, look, I'm not comfortable to talk to my child about that, and I really don't want them to attend just for that part, but they can certainly attend for everything else. At the moment, we are saying, yes, okay, we'd prefer your child to be there for some of the session rather than none at all. But we do hope that in a couple more years' time, it's just going to be part of our program. That's just how it is, and we will have 100% attendance through those programs. We think it's been an overwhelming success. We've had feedback from parents in terms of surveys and how we can do things differently. And all they keep saying to us is, it's just allowed me the opportunity to open a line of communication with my child and start talking to them about things that I wouldn't have until they were in year 7 or year 8, and they were already halfway through puberty before I would have started that.